This series is made possible by the generous donation of Stifel Financial and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to this series on NCTV, Where Do We Go From Here? And the focus of this particular series is on climate change and how our community can and is responding. I'm your host today, Don Baldwin, and I'm chair of the coordinating team for the Nevada County Climate Change Coalition. So this series, Where Do We Go From Here, gets to the heart of vital issues that are at once both local and global. And that gives us an opportunity to bring in people in our community that are pretty special in their knowledge and experience of dealing with issues related to climate change. I should say that past episodes of these NCTV series can be found at the Nevada County Digital Media Center website, and they also air and are streamed on the Comcast Government Channel 17 Monday nights at 7 p.m. at that website. They are also on YouTube. So to start today, I want to acquaint you a little bit with the work of the Nevada County Climate Change Coalition. And later, more specifically, we will deal with some key aspects of our coalition work that have to do with community education. People ask me, well, how did the Climate Change Coalition come about? Well, about 4 years ago, some of us who had carried a passionate concern about climate change drew together, about 20 of us, to form a coalition of individuals that were concerned that we knew this problem needed to be addressed by more than an individual, but by collective action. I should say, too, that it's not, given the name, a county agency. The Nevada County Climate Change Coalition is really to designate an area from which we draw. About 200 individuals have been on our email list, and we have a coordinating team that meets regularly to plan programs and events. I'd like to read our mission statement for you, that our mission as a climate change coalition exists to help living systems thrive, locally and globally, both in the present time and for generations beyond the scope of our imagination. Our vision is to encourage governments, organizations, businesses, and citizens toward innovative climate solutions that honor the rights and needs of all people while encouraging long-term economic viability and environmental sustainability. So, knowing that, we decided that we needed to divide our work into several areas, one of which is the renewable energy movement, such as using solar, and there will be other programs related to energy and 100% energy renewable work in our coalition. We have an education committee to help us to learn about climate change, to understand what is true and not true about the dangers of climate change, and what we can be doing to limit our carbon footprint both as individuals and as a society. And we have a social action committee that is geared to trying to find the ways that we make changes in our community. We go all the way from letter writing to meeting with our legislatures to find solutions politically and socially, educationally, that will make a difference in reducing the amount of carbon that is put to cause global warming. So with that brief introduction, it's my privilege today to have a guest and close colleague in our work with the Climate Change Coalition, Teresa Langness. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you.
Teresa is an author, an educator, and she is founder of the global nonprofit Full Circle Learning, and she serves as the chair of our coalition's education committee. So we're glad to have this conversation together, Teresa. First, I think it would be helpful for our viewers if you would briefly tell how your global educational work with Full Circle Learning relates to your role in our Climate Change Coalition educational work. And perhaps you can describe that role a little bit more.
Thank you, Don. I was very interested in hearing your description of the coalition and in particular of our mission statement. And the part that really touches me is the phrase about what will happen for the generations beyond our imagination. When we look into the future and we think about what our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren will say about how we preserved and protected this planet, what we did for the living beings of this generation, we realize the great honor and privilege of serving today in this kind of an effort. As I have been involved with children around the world, teachers around the world, youth around the world, increasingly over these past 2.5 decades, in helping them become the change agents of their generation, increasingly the challenges and the dilemmas they're dealing with have to do with the impacts of climate change. The problems they're solving today are not just problems that address poverty or economic impacts. They're not just environmental problems of a generic nature, but they specifically relate to climate change, and climate change as it impacts human health and hunger and water and the most essential human rights that all of us as individuals have. And that is not specific to region. That affects every planetary human being, including those in our own county and those from in the farthest reaches of the earth, from Papua New Guinea to Africa to China, the most developed communities and the most underdeveloped communities. And so as we look at what we can do locally, when I first heard that the coalition was forming and came to one of those early meetings and we talked about what committees we should have, I raised my hand.
I remember that.
And then someone said, well, if you raise your hand and suggest a committee, you have to be the chair. So that's how we ended up with an education committee whose role was to really educate everybody of every age, both the seniors in terms of maturity and the seniors in high school and the smallest children, that really everybody in our community is a member of the human family. And we need everybody to understand their role, not only as someone who will be affected by climate change, but someone who will affect climate change, someone who will be a humanitarian change agent in determining where we go from here. And so that's why we realized we need not only these educational programs for adults, but we need to pass the baton to that next generation and help them understand what they can do about climate change.
Well, now, Teresa, you and I have been with the coalition from its inception, and through the Education Committee, we have done a lot of programs that relate to lowering our carbon footprints, to dealing with automobiles, gas to electric vehicles. We've had forums and seminars and lots of collaboration with Circle, the local film festival, with showing films. So how do you see your role as the education chair here? And maybe you can be more specific in what some of the projects you have done with young people.
Well, putting aside for a minute the things that we have done with the adult community to educate them, because that's a subject that we can probably address more toward the end and is a very specific and evolving question. How what we're doing today is a little different than what we were doing 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But looking at what we're doing with the young people, we developed a very specific project called the Climate Change Agents Camp. And the reason we developed that program was because we began to realize that those people who will carry the responsibility and I dare say burden of leadership in the future are people who are now upper elementary school, middle school, early high school, those people who are beginning to develop the abstract thinking skills to understand what an interdisciplinary effort this requires. And so we developed a program that requires them to develop their life skills as well as their academic approaches to addressing climate change, to help them understand the social justice aspects, the academic aspects, the service learning components in a very specific way, a model of education that will really prepare them for climate change abatement, mitigation, sequestering carbon, all the things that are associated with climate change, to specifically develop those skills now that will influence the leadership skills they bring to those problems that we can't even foresee yet, because climate change is evolving continually.
Now, is this a year-long program or a month-long program? I mean, you've
This
outlined...
is a really intense program. Therefore, it is only 1 week.
1 week.
It's an overnight camp in the summer. It's scholarship-based. It's limited in the number of learners we can accept, and it's a 5-night overnight program in a lodge. Every day there is either a service learning field trip or a number of other projects that the change agents undergo, so that at the beginning of the week they're introduced to one bookend, which is what we call the habit of heart of that year, and at the other end of the week they have to have applied that habit of heart to the goal of changing some aspect of climate change. It might be drought one year, it might be food insecurity, it might be water-related issues. Their habit of heart might be unity or empathy or ethics. That what they learn is they need to develop a specific skill and then apply it through their intellectual capacities, through the arts, through practical skills, through engineering, through invention, through agriculture, whatever it takes, in a series of projects, maybe a dozen projects in 5 days, with conflict resolution applications, with a global wisdom exchange partner in 1 or possibly 2 countries, so that they really understand how to see this challenge through both a local and a global lens, and understand that they're going to have to extract wisdom from various perspectives and apply various skills to solve a problem. And then they're going to have to do that the next year with a new challenge and a new quality they're going to develop, so that over the years they really can develop the skills of leadership.
Of being climate change agents.
Climate change agents.
Can you give me a more specific idea of what would happen on a given day, or what some of the projects are, so it's a little bit more concrete?
Yes, I would never isolate it by day. I'll give you a sample week, for example. Last year, the habit of heart was unity, and they were looking at water-based issues, not just the local watershed, but actually combining oceanic water issues and local, because last year the Climate Change Ministry of Vanuatu contacted us and asked if they could send a scholarship representative. So we also added a scholarship for a girl who came with her mother as a chaperone from Vanuatu. So we looked at the cyclones in her country, we looked at the shrinking islands in Melanesia, in the islands near her. We looked at various local issues. Last year, as you might recall, that was an El Nino year. So we had the students restoring habitat in a floodplain, looking at permeable sidewalks in Grass Valley. We had them looking at water catchment issues here locally and comparing those with the highly innovative water catchment issues and challenges and solutions that this girl was using in her country. For example, in Vanuatu, in some of the villages, most of the villages, they don't have electricity, they don't have running water. So even though they're surrounded by water, they don't have fresh water. So one person in a village might have a tin roof, everybody else has thatched roofs. So that one person will find an old refrigerator, take the door off, or maybe it might just be a bathtub, put it under their eaves, and let the rainfall flow into that water container, and everybody in the village will come and collect their cooking water and drinking water from that container, and then everybody will bathe in the ocean so that they can conserve water.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were looking at freshwater needs around the world, we were looking at water catchment systems that local people have devised to use during the drought years, and comparing those with solutions on the islands, and looking at the innovation that comes from afar, and how sometimes that helps us during the drought years to understand that we don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look beyond our own boundaries. One of our songs says, molecules don't follow rules.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand boundaries. So carbon doesn't understand boundaries. We should look beyond our own boundaries and share our wisdom. So the students will often send a solution abroad, but also collect a solution from abroad, and then teach it to our local community. On the last day of camp, they performed a beautiful dance about the shrinking islands and had that as part of their exhibit at the farmers market, and taught some of the solutions about climate change and water-based issues to our local community at the farmers market. Mm-hmm. So that teaching, sharing knowledge is one of the community services. A lot of times they'll provide other services at a farm or somewhere else in the community. But that would give you an example of some of the things that they did just at last year's camp. They provided about 12 services for the community and reached about 12,000 people with the services they provided and the knowledge they shared.
Now, I remember going to one of the programs at the farmers market, and I remember hearing about solar cookers and solar movement. Say a little bit about what the kids have learned related to natural energy and energy sources.
A couple of years they have had solar cooker projects. Their solar designs have been sometimes very elaborate, and they have donated those solar cookers to local organizations such as Hospitality House, and they have taken them home and learned to use them at home. They have also made more portable versions that they have sent abroad. One of their best wisdom exchanges, because the wisdom exchange is always a part of the camp, was a solar cooker project that they did with Tanzania. In Tanzania, their wisdom exchange partner was a school that had two problems. One was deforestation. The children were in an area where drought was a particular problem because the area had been deforested, and the girls were not in school because the girls were sent out every day to collect firewood. And that's why the drought was worsening. So two particular challenges, girls' education and deforestation. Well, the boys decided they were going to do something about this. They didn't know what other fuel sources to use other than firewood. So they put their heads together and decided, why not dung patties? We have lots of cows. We have lots of dung patties. They had straw and they had cows. So they put those two things together and made dung patties, taught their community how to make the dung patties, sent us pictures before the camp began, and challenged our change agents to make dung patties for our community, to teach everybody a wonderful solution to deforestation.
That would be a learning for me.
It was a learning for the change agents. We took them out back. We got a lot of manure, and we had them make dung patties to display at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And then we talked about what's wrong with this picture.
Yeah.
If we only fueled our ovens with dung patties, would we be encouraging more greenhouse gases? Would we have to use methane producing source?
Yeah.
Would that be a great idea? Oh, what's a better option? So we made the solar cookers, and we not only made enough for the change agents to display and to take home and to encourage the use locally, but we made enough that they could send them to Tanzania with an orphanage owner who was traveling there by suitcase. And we made them out of a material that they could find locally by using recycled materials. And that orphanage owner went to that school, taught all those boys and girls how to use solar power. And guess what? Nobody in that quite large town had ever used solar power or knew anything about it.
So I'm getting a wonderful sense from our visit that this climate change agents camp, even for 1 week with 12 or so young people, can have a global impact.
They changed a whole village. And we have had several students in the camp say that the moment they became change agents was not when they were honored for their service locally, but when they realized they could literally change the world.
Yeah.
When they could improve the life and the well-being of someone globally, it gave them the incentive to change lives locally as well. One boy last year, when they were asked to come up with engineering designs to improve renewable energies, he came up with the most incredible new tidal energy, because we were talking about
what?
A tidal energy.
A tidal.
For using ocean power.
Ocean power.
He came up with a solution to reimagining oil rigs and using tidal energy and using turbines, and I won't tell you because I know he's going to patent it. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And yet this boy, when he was asked to give a speech later, as the kids are often asked to do somewhere in the community, he said that his idea of climate change was not just that it's about changing the climate, but that it refers to also changing the social climate. Because when they learn about ways to demonstrate applications of conflict resolution among industries, among different stakeholders in a community, stakeholders on the world stage and at school and among themselves, when they learn to serve one another in the camp and collaborate every day and work so closely together and live together practicing unity or empathy or ethics, they come to understand that they're really developing a new way of being, a new way of problem solving. They're changing the social climate in order to address the impacts of climate change. And he said, that's when I realized that this is what it takes. It isn't just new engineering solutions. It isn't just new tidal energies. It's about changing the social climate of the human family.
What were these bookends that you said your camp begins with and then ends with? The first one was...
And this is the full circle learning model too.
Full circle learning.
Every learning unit, whether it's a week, whether it's 6 weeks, however long it is. First, the habit of heart.
The habit of heart.
Service to the human family.
Service to the human family.
We're all living things. And everything you do in between, the academic strengths that you develop, the arts, the conflict resolution, everything else you do is integrated, working toward that end, to address a dilemma or a particular problem you're solving with that in mind, by applying that life skill toward that dilemma or that problem that you're solving.
Have you had some feedback from your young people about what this has meant for them?
Well, absolutely, absolutely. It's life-changing, not just in this community, but of course we've had that feedback from around the world. And one of the things that we've come to see is that when improving the well-being of other members of your family, locally, your classroom family, your camp family, or your broader global family, when that becomes the motivation to learn, then you've begun to understand the purpose of learning. And that becomes your authentic assessment. That becomes exciting. That becomes what Maslow would call a peak experience. That is so much more compelling than taking a test or even gliding along the zip line. In camp, we're next door to another camp that has a zip line. And we try not to take the kids outside at that time of day when they're going to hear the competition. At the end of camp, we realize what they've done is so much more meaningful that it changes the nature of learning for them. And there's always that one student who, on that ride back to meet their family, says, "Do we have to leave? We want this to go on forever." And so over the years, of course, when the parents fill out a survey or the students fill out self-surveys, we have what we call a 19 indicator survey. And we find that the motivation to learn, the life skills and the academic skills and just the whole nature of learning itself and applying those skills in service to others is off the charts for, 75 to 98% of the students.
So it sounds to me like it's not just global warming, but it's heartwarming.
Thank you. There's a new tagline.
I mean, and when are we going to do this for a lot of the adults in my generation?
There's a reason.
This model sounds like it's transferable.
Well, it
is
is,
it?
but I tell you what, there's a reason why, I began my career writing for adults. And when I realized that when I would write for adults, I was preaching to the choir. And when I work with young people, we're catching them in their formative years when their life is on track going this way and suddenly it veers upward. And so if there are adults who haven't decided who they are yet and they're 85 years old, bring them on. But most of us have already decided that trajectory by the time we are willing to sign up for a course. But what a wonderful idea. We should have a camp for retired people.
Now, some of our viewers might want to know how they can learn more about the Climate Change Agents Camp for this coming summer. How do they find out about it?
Okay, they can go to our website for the coalition, which is NC, that stands for Nevada County, not North Carolina, NC, climatechangecoalition.org. We also we should mention that this is just an ad hoc organization. We're not an official nonprofit, so we operate solely with donations, and everybody comes on scholarship. We don't require tuition or camp fee. So it's merit-based. They have to apply. They need a teacher's recommendation. So you'll find the application on the website, but if you want to know how to make a donation, please ask us on the website. You can find out how to make a donation there. You can make a donation through the fiscal agent, which happens to be Full Circle Learning, because we're a nonprofit and we can accept your donation.
Well, do you have any final thoughts on how others can participate in an educational program that would address climate change with the values that you've indicated.
One thing I want to say is one of the strengths of this program is, every full circle learning program, and particularly the camp, is its strength relies on its regionality. And we benefit greatly from the magnificent mentors we have in this community as field trip hosts, as guest presenters, chaperones. That becomes the strength of the camp. And we have you on file. If you have a strength and you send it to us, if it doesn't work for that particular year, it will work in a future year. Mm-hmm. So bring it on. Tell us what your capacities are, and there will be a way to align with what we're doing. And if it doesn't work with what we're doing in the camp, it may work with an upcoming presentation. We talked a little bit about the kinds of things we're looking for for the ongoing monthly presentations that we have either on the third Thursday of the month for adults or for some of our special activities that we do that support our strategic plan. Right now, of course, we're really focused on 100% renewable energy, and whether you're buying a car or remodeling your house or preparing a meal or whatever it is you're doing, we've had a program on that topic. And so we're looking for ways to help the community support climate change mitigation and adaptation and all those things. So if you have a strength in a particular area, whether it's ag, whether it's energy, carbon reduction, whatever it is, share that, reach out to us on our website, and we will use your strengths. Or reach out to us and say you want to be on our mailing list, and we will either send you the monthly flyer or send you a direct email.
Okay. I know there's a program planned this spring that is on climate-friendly food.
Exactly.
How to prepare, how to purchase climate-friendly, prepare. I don't know if there's a way to eat it that's climate-friendly, but that's an example of the application that really makes a difference from a personal level.
And I'm willing to wager that probably 100% of the people in Nevada County eat. So it's probably relevant to everyone.
Well, where do we go from here? What do you see the future of our work with the Climate Change Coalition, with the Full Circle Learning? Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I think this year in particular, the camp is going to be very relevant because our theme this year is food insecurity as it relates to climate change. And this is a growing problem around the world. This touches on our work in agriculture, which is, of course, a very strong component of our local economy. And our local economy is connected with the work done around the world. So we can be pace setters here and create models that will be relevant around the world. A school in Cameroon is our wisdom exchange partner this year. Their 12th graders decided on their own they were going to help the farmers of their region learn how to do organic pest control because so much of their food is being destroyed by pests who have increased due to climate change. And so this is going to be a big issue this year. And so if there are people who have those strengths that they want to share with us and want to reach out to us, and that will be important. Letting your strengths be known is important to us. And with our local community and the coalition, just making yourself known so that you can be a part of what the coalition is doing. We all have work to do together. The more that we work together to create social change, that type of climate change, a change in the social climate, the better we can create safe, sustainable communities. And I think that's the message from our youth, our young climate change agents, to our mature change agents.
Well, thank you. Teresa Langness.
Thank you, Don.
For your really fine work and commitment to addressing climate change and your educational model is very inspiring.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it, and I love working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And remember, you can find out more about how you can be involved by going to www.nclimatechangecoalition.org. And again, I'm Don Baldwin, and I want to thank you for watching and for your interest in learning about climate change and addressing the solutions that we might do together. Thank you.